Good morning, everyone. Thanks for attending to this presentation. I'm Pelayo Pen. This is my third year of PhD, and I'm going to be talking to you about intelligent navigation and control system for minor celestial body descent and ascent. Let me first define the objectives of the program. The idea was to investigate innovative adaptive systems for autonomous landing in harsh environments being minor celestial bodies from whom the conditions at arrival are not precisely known. And then this requires to develop high fidelity environments to model all of these simulations. And as always, we want it to be as resilient as possible because, again, the uncertainties are very high and the risk on this type of missions or study cases is also very high. Well, this is a bit of a roadmap I showed last year where I started researching about landing simulations and then eventually ended up in this, where is the laser here? Well, there in the HDA systems, which is hazard detection and avoidance system, which is the part where I focused most during my research. And this is what I'm going to be presenting to you today. So the plan, methodology, and the roadmap I had at the beginning was to create a baseline GNC simulator, and this was needed because we needed to model these environments I was mentioning before. We needed to implement some of the key concepts for these hazard detection and avoidance systems, which then ended up being this module that we called Astro HDA. The idea was also, of course, to assess these performances, and this would translate into publications, hopefully. And finally consolidating the algorithm. And one of the parts of this PhD was also to have a secondment visit and stay at DFKI in Bremen, which is the Institute for Robotics in Germany, and to test it in hardware conditions, in hardware in the loop conditions, so to say. So HDA, Astro HDA. I'm going to present to you a CNN-based, so convolutional neural network-based method that's composed of 3 layers. As most traditional, and when I say traditional, I mean not machine learning-based methods are also composed of. These 3 layers are shadow detection, feature detection, and slope estimation. As I just mentioned, this is based on CNNs. The backbone for the architecture of each of these 3 layers is the ResNet34, which is a residual network, one of the networks that Alfredo was just mentioning now. And the technique or the training method that I was basing all of this on is called semantic segmentation, which is given an image and establish which element is a single identity. So if in an image we have a table and a bike, each of those elements would be one element and need to be distinguished in terms of pixels. The innovation part of this research relies on points number 2 here in the slide, which is passive systems. What is passive systems? So typically, traditionally, HDA systems rely on LiDARs, which are laser radars, so to say, which are active systems because they are actively sending a beam to the environment and then gathering the information that they are obtaining from this environment. Instead, we wanted to base this research on passive systems because they, of course, they reduce the weight on the spacecraft, the cost of the instruments in the spacecraft, and they can be implemented in a wider variety of spacecrafts, like, for example, CubeSats as well, which cannot, for its proportions, carry this kind of LiDARs, right? And then another thing that we wanted to have is generality and single instance evaluation. So given an image and without any context, being able to extract the features, because if we want this to be robust, we need to have a network that's able to understand what it's looking at just by one image. If we need to have plenty of images before, then it's not as robust, right? Because you might come from a phase where you are orbiting from the dark side of the minor celestial body, then you don't have previous information, and you need to have one image and then immediately recognize what you're looking at. So yeah, similarly to Alfredo as well, we also developed a rendering pipeline for the dataset generation. As Alfredo was also mentioning, data for this kind of problems is quite scarce. So we wanted to also be able to generate and render our own images. We did that based on geometries that are known to us, as for example, Churyumov-Gerasimenko, sorry, I will say it wrong, Eros or other bodies. And then we implemented pipeline in which we distribute random feature populations on the shape model. So we can have also more variety, because we don't know where the features are in the real body until we get there, or until we have images of it, right? So we wanted to have also some variability to also help these generalization capabilities of the network. Yeah, and this on the left side, you can see the, as I call it, the naked rendered image, where you have the shape model with illumination conditions based on the position of the sun at a given time. And then, since we want to train 3 layers, 2 being shadow and feature detection, and the other one being slope estimation, we need to create 2 different kinds of masks, or 3 different kinds of masks to train the networks as to serve as the true values for our training. And in the middle, you see the slope estimation, which is not a gradient-based slope estimation, but more of a threshold-based. Following the literature, we found out that 15 degrees was the value that we wanted to take. 15 degrees of slope means that, of course, if you are landing a spacecraft, you don't want to land on a place that's vertical, and you always have to take this into account with respect to the local gravity vector. This, of course, depends on the spacecraft and can be tuned, but we selected 15. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the same image on the left, but with 2 differently stochastically distributed feature populations. So now the results. First, the shadow detection layer. On the left side of the slide, these 4 images are targets. So this would be like the true values for the evaluation, and these are the predictions. So these are the outcomes of the network. And then on the right-hand side, I'm showing you what's called the top losses plot that shows you the 3 worst cases of the whole training set. As you can see, the training cases that had the worst results were very dark conditions, where it was very difficult to actually estimate what we were looking at, because there was nothing to look at, basically. And most of the problem comes from the estimation of the limb. So you can see that even if there are very little segments of the image which are well lit, those are well estimated, and then the problem comes in the places where it's completely dark, because the algorithm is not estimating even the limb of the body, right? But in the rest, very interesting results. For the shadow detection, this is also the easiest layer, no, but was the one yielding the best results. Yeah, this layer was very accurate. Then the feature detection. So for the labeling of the features, I have a pre-processing function that basically creates rectangles around the features, so to label them as like in boxes. So in this box, there's a feature, so a hazard that needs to be detected. Again, in the top losses, we see images which are very, very much darkened and where the illumination conditions are very poor. But very interesting, we see that the network has learned already to not take the rectangles that we see here, but to adapt to more natural shapes, which are the actual shapes of the features that we're seeing. So this is really, really, really interesting, and of course provides very good results. As you can see here, I mean, here you have the actual image superimposed with the mask. So I hope you can see that, for example, in this side of the asteroid, the illumination conditions are poor. We have shadows here, so there are no features that can be seen on the image. So of course the network is not detecting it. So it's not that there are no features, it's that for the feature detection layer, this part is safe, because as far as it is concerned, there's no features because it doesn't see it. Then slope estimation, and this is, let's say, the bone of the whole research. Like, this is where we differentiate from the rest of the similar methods that they are in the current literature. So what we see here is this is a more. I don't think you can see it very clearly here. I thought it was going to be better, but here it's the upper part of the body is in shadow conditions, while the lower part of it is illuminated. So you can see that where the shadow is present, the estimation of the slope is not working very well, of course, because we are not actually seeing what is there, and the slope estimation relies a lot on the illumination conditions, because learns from how the shadows are cast in the body to estimate how the geometry of the body actually is. But when the illumination conditions are good, we can see here how it's not that all of the pixels here are detected correctly, but we see that the general trends of the slope are detected, which is already a very good estimation for this kind of problems, because we are taking a 2D image without any kind of preamble to it, and then we are actually estimating the slope. So this is actually very, very nice results. Again, 2 very badly illuminated cases for the worst cases. And then this one, which to me, I mean, it seems a bit weird because the illumination conditions are not too bad. And if you ask me, and by visual analysis, I don't think the estimation is that bad. Like, of course, there are some things that are wrong, but you see the main corridor here, which is, let's say, flat, no, or under the threshold that we have established. And yeah, I mean, of course, you have some areas that are not terrible, but I mean, if I compare this to this one, for example, or to this one, I don't know. It feels a bit weird, but anyway, it's there, so I cannot just hide it. Okay, and now the interesting part.
Pelayo, you have already consumed your 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay.
Already. So
yeah. So I will speed up. Yeah. And then with these 3 layers, what we want to do is to compose them like one on top of each other. And then what I'm showing you here is the input image that the network would get. These are the targets. These are the predictions in the second column. And this is also something very interesting output of the network, which is the probability maps that also tells us about how confident the network is about the prediction. And then by composing these 3 on top of each other, we get what's called the safety map that gives you the areas in the asteroid where you can land safely based on these 3 criteria, these 3 layers. We also tested this with different bodies and different features. We saw that the shadows were perfectly fine, even with features that the network didn't know beforehand. Same for the features. And the slopes were not that bad. So this is an indicator that including similar geometries to the body you're going to analyze in your training is very relevant for these kind of problems. And then very quickly I will show you how we tested this in the FKI with real images. They have a very nice facility there. These are some of the sample images that we took, and this is how the network was able to estimate it. So pretty good results for hardware in loop. This was done in a Raspberry Pi and a Raspberry Pi camera module V2. So very good results here. These were the publishing objectives we had already. We had 2 journal publications already. The last one published yesterday, yay. So very happy about it. And then I'm struggling or trying to publish a 3rd one with Alfredo and Thomas together. So we can hopefully maybe try to have the thesis by papers and save time of writing the thesis that I'm sure all of you also want to save. The manuscript should be ready for September, and so far we have pretty cool things that I think we can put together to conform a nice paper. Yeah, some training I had, outreach for the activities, the references. Thank you. Sorry for taking a bit more of your time.